If you had told me that January 6th was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk.
Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at Vivek Ramaswamy as he challenges the views on J6 when he says there were feds in the crowd and that the new J6 tapes show police letting people in the Capitol. This is not a political post, but a body language analysis and a good learning moment, as there are many different dynamics at play here. Before we get in the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, but also check out my Twitter at bowtied_owl, where we cover tips, tricks, and everything related to learning about body language and psychology. Let's go ahead and get in the video.
So let me ask you about something that you said at the debate last week.
As always, let's look at opening body language. Vivek Ramaswamy stands squarely facing the speaker here with a slight head tilt and his fingers are steepled. It's nice open body language. Now, normally this is good, but you need to be careful with steepling fingers, and you have to be able to back it up. If you don't carry the weight, the attitude, or general demeanor, steepling fingers actually damage your outward appearance more than they improve it. In this instance, the steepling fingers seem more forced, creating a barrier rather than facilitating openness. I'm curious what your opinion is. Let me know.
You used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day, Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby, and I want to tell you guys where I'm at.
So observe Ramaswamy's exemplary display of body language here. His hands are elevated to the chest with palms outward, signaling transparency and a willingness to communicate, whereas palms down would normally indicate an authoritative demeanor. The absence of crossed arms is a clear indication of engagement, and his upright posture denotes a sense of authority here. Consider this, though. The strategic positioning of his arms, they are extended yet relaxed, far from the constriction of self-guarding gestures. This deliberate spacing is not merely about openness, it's an effective use of physical space that amplifies his presence. Herein lies a valuable body language tip for you guys. Commanding space is commanding attention. It's a nonverbal assertion of confidence and leadership, enhancing your stature in any setting.
If you had told me, it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened. If you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6th was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk.
Now, we can analyze his facial expressions until the end of time here, but I think that'd bore you guys. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. So we do have a use of strategic pause here, which is why I stopped the video. Right after he makes a bold statement of, if you had told me January 6th was in any way an inside job, I would have believed you. Short pause. Let's talk about the impact that pause has. It punctuates the statement, allowing the audience to absorb the shock value of the claim, giving weight to the idea that January 6th could be considered an inside job. It adds a layer of drama and can stir the audience's emotion, prompting them to reflect on the gravity of that statement. It provides a moment for the audience to process that information, potentially leading to a greater impact as they consider the implications of his words. And it can re-engage listeners who may have drifted off. A sudden silence can snap the audience's attention back to the speaker. And lastly, it gives a moment of silence for the speaker himself to stand firmly by his statement, showing he's not rushing away from the claim, but instead open to scrutiny. And you'll see here, and in the following seconds of the video, that he attempts the use of strategic pauses, but I personally think he needs to let the pause linger for a little bit longer to really let that sink in with the audience.
Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this.
One more pause here regarding his gestures. The left hand here is raised slightly higher than the right during his speech, and that can indicate several nuanced elements of nonverbal communication. In the principles of kinesics, which is a study of body motion communication, asymmetrical hand gestures are often associated with a higher degree of expressiveness and can signal a higher cognitive load as the speaker processes thoughts and translate them into speech. This can reflect a speaker's engagement with complex topics, showing an organic and intellectual processing of ideas in real time. meaning it's not scripted. Furthermore, the hand that is raised higher often subtly points to the content or concept that the speaker subconsciously prioritizes or feels more strongly about. In this case, he's pointing towards the audience. In addition, and lastly, the hand's elevation level can modulate the perceived intensity of the message. A higher lift can suggest an elevation in the speaker's emotional investment to the point being made.
You have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge, that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19, about the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation collusion hoax, all of it. Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think
Maybe you noticed it there, maybe you didn't, but there was quite a bit of eye fluttering there at the end, and this can mean a few things. When a speaker is discussing complex or contentious issues, the cognitive load is high, meaning their brain is working hard to process thoughts and articulate them clearly. This can sometimes manifest physically, such as through increased blinking or eye fluttering. It can indicate emotional stress. Polarizing subjects often evoke strong emotions. Eye fluttering can be a physical manifestation of the stress or anxiety associated with having to navigate such topics, especially in a public forum. He could be searching for words here, which I don't think he is. It could be nonverbal leakage. So sometimes eye fluttering can be a form of nonverbal leakage where the true emotions or stress of the speaker leak out despite their attempt to appear calm and collected. It could indicate a rapid thought process, so an individual may flutter their eyes when they're thinking rapidly or going through several thoughts quickly, trying to keep up with the internal pace of their reasoning. And lastly, it could be a desire to shield. On a subconscious level, fluttering eyes can act as a barrier, momentarily shielding the speaker from the audience or the intensity of the topic at hand.
it's shameful. And if I may finish just answering,
Well, let me
this
just.
is really important.
That was interesting. Let's replay that little interaction and break it down.
It's shameful. And if I may finish just answering,
Well, let me
this
just.
is really important.
In a brief yet telling exchange, Mr. Ramaswamy's body language conveys a multi-layered message. As he is interrupted, his open-handed gestures and forward lean communicate a nonverbal request to continue his point. It's a blend of earnestness and assertion. The interviewer's raised hand acts as a nonverbal cue for pause, asserting control over the dialogue's tempo. The critical moment comes when Mr. Ramaswamy extends his hand to touch the interviewer's arm, a nuanced use of haptic communication to bridge the interruption. This touch is a strategic nonverbal tactic, suggesting both a respectful acknowledgement of the interruption and a subtle yet firm insistence on finishing his thought. It's a delicate balance of assertion and diplomacy, underlying the importance of the message he wishes to convey. For an audience attuned to the subtleties of the interaction, this moment underscores the power of touch as a means to navigate conversational dynamics, particularly in a structured public dialogue. It's an example of how nonverbal cues can be effectively employed to manage and guide the flow of communication. Let's see how it works out.
I'm going to go ahead and interrupt you here because you're
I know
saying that
the establishment doesn't approve of this message. I know.
Looks like he didn't quite win the battle here, and in this image we observe a moment where Mr. Ramaswamy's body language shifts in response to the conversational challenge. His fists are closed, which is a departure from his open-handed gestures prior. This gesture typically signifies a strong emotional investment in the situation at hand. It's a common signifier of intensity, whether stemming from passion, determination, or response to contention. Here, as he holds his ground against the interruption, his fists suggest a fortified stance, ready to assert his point with conviction. Such a gesture, particularly in a charged discussion, indicates a readiness to confront challenges head-on. His statement about the establishment, paired with the physical expression, underscores his message's urgency and his preparedness for pushback. The closed fists serve as a nonverbal underline to his spoken words, reinforcing the strength of his position.
There were federal agents.
We should be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is important to talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many there were.
So you're saying that that you have not seen any evidence that there were.
We've seen multiple informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked to
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this and you can come back to question me?
Let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth here.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you, I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Looks like neither speaker are giving up ground here, and we see another interesting dynamic. Mr. Ramaswamy displaying a tense and annoyed body language as he argues heatedly in this debate. His hands raised high with pointer finger up, showing an assertive gesture, desperately trying to interject his view. His gesture looks controlled yet frustrated, showing his irritation at not being allowed to share his position. At the same time, his other hand, squeezed into pursed fingers, shows growing annoyance to the tightness of his grip. As the debate turns more into a disagreement, this gesture hints at hostility towards his opponent's stance. The stress evident in his hands highlights an urge to strongly argue against attacks directed at him. Though he remains facing his challenger, the rigidness of his stance and touchy gestures signal a need, through strain, to strongly defend himself against critique. Overall, Mr. Ramaswamy's gestures and frustrated emotion expose someone working hard to get an opportunity to forcefully rebut the accusations. His tense body language conveys anger reined in to channel a decisive response. The visible restraint points to volatile feelings brewing under his composed surface in combative exchange.
Evidence.
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot, an inside job?
But no, I'm going to tell you what an inside job is, because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in planning or executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this, and you can push back on it after that. And you can push back on that. And let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released, 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd? You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing people in,
again,
right through the front door.
The vast majority of that
video evidence should have been released before, Abby.
As Mr. Ramaswamy faces interruption, his body speaks pretty loudly here. With fingertips pressed together, he signals intellectual precision and patience. His posture is steady, a clear demonstration of his intent to be heard amidst the noise of debate. Even as Abby's voice rises over his composed demeanor and focused gaze remain undisturbed, and it's a testament to his resolve here. He stands ready, not just to continue, but to command attention back to the substance of his argument. He is someone who won't be easily overpowered here, and is a figure of steadfastness in the turbulent waters of public discourse.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows police officers being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violent
this is really important.
riders.
So in the heat of discussion, Abby seems to hit the brakes on Vivek's points with the well-timed interruptions. It's almost like she's feeling the pressure, sensing that Vivek's arguments are gaining too much traction and veering off a path that she's comfortable with. So she jumps in, cutting him off. And this isn't just about cutting in to speak. It's about pulling back the reins, trying to steer the conversation back to a place where she feels more in control. And it's a classic move when the debate gets too hot, or when what's being said is hitting a bit too close to home.
That's
I'm going to give you some hard facts. So here's what entrapment is.
Cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking. If I may finish, Abby. If I may finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
To the contrary. To the contrary. You know who cherry picked? You know who cherry picked? The government.
That is what happened.
The government cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government, not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So
I think this is a civil libertarian issue of our time. Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this, because it's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer.
Another quick reminder, the higher you see someone gesturing, the more confident they are on the topic.
Were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave them credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000.
Take a closer look at the hand gesture Mr. Ramaswamy is using here. It's called the precision grip, where his thumb and fingers come together as if he's holding something quite small, like a delicate thread of thought. This isn't about grand gestures, it's about pinpoint accuracy. He's zeroing in on the fine print, the nitty-gritty details of his argument. Each point he's making is selected like a jeweler picking out the perfect gem. This level of detail-oriented focus is a hallmark of a speaker who values depth over breadth, precision over generalization. And as he navigates the intricacies of this topic, this precision grip tells us he's not only confident in his stance, but is dissecting the issue with an analytical precision. In the realm of public discourse, it's gestures like this that underscore a mastery of the subject at hand.
Encourage them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents, putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment. Same thing with the Capitol Police, people letting them in freely. Many of those people then being charged.
Ramaswamy, look,
the government cannot put you up to do something and then charge you for it.
So in this moment, we witness a telling turn in the conversation. The interviewer, Abby, who has been steadfast in her engagement with Vivek, now pivots to the audience. And this is the first time she's done this. This isn't a new angle. It's a sign of the tide turning. She's lost her grip on the narrative. The control is slipping through her fingers. And in a bid to recapture some of the lost ground, she reaches out to the audience, her body language a mix of appeal and redirection. It's a solid admission that the one-on-one has not gone as planned, and now the audience becomes her potential ally. It's a sea of faces to which she casts her net, hoping to bring the conversation back into her domain. This move speaks volumes, a nonverbal concession that the battle of narratives has shifted and a new strategy is in play.
That's wrong.
I don't want to have
It's wrong to the left or the right.
I don't want to have to interrupt you. I really don't. But I don't want you to mislead.
And here, in a telling moment, we reach an unspoken acknowledgement of defeat. So Abby, cornered in conversation, plays her final card, threatening to bring the interview to an abrupt end. Despite this, she does manage to keep her composure, her nonverbal steady and very controlled. But then there's Vivek, hands on hips, head tilted with a faint, knowing smile. It's the universal stance of someone who's come out on top. Without saying a word, his posture alone speaks volumes here, broadcasting the silent victory of gaining the upper hand in this verbal chess game.
Lead the audience here or
I'm
at
not.
home.
I think they've been misled by the mainstream media.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn more about body language, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And be sure to download your free copy of Read the Room using the link in my bio. It's a comprehensive guide to understanding nonverbal communication.